Today we celebrate feminine beauty in this theme and era, expressed through style, elegance, posture, and presence. The 1970s brought a revolution in how women expressed their individuality through fashion. This was the decade when feminine beauty broke free from rigid conventions, embracing earth-toned leather, flowing fringes, and an attitude of authentic self-expression that would define a generation of women. What made the boho woman of the 70s so captivating? Perhaps it was the way she carried herself with quiet confidence, wearing her independence like the softest suede jacket. Or maybe it was how she transformed simple pieces into statements of personal freedom, creating looks that felt both effortless and deeply intentional. The bohemian style of this era wasn't just about clothing. It was about women claiming space to be themselves in a world that was rapidly changing. The bohemian movement emerged from the counterculture revolution of the late 1960s, but it truly flourished in the early to mid-70s. Women who had grown tired of structured silhouettes and formal expectations found inspiration in folk traditions, Native American crafts, and global textiles. This wasn't fashion dictated by Paris runways or department store buyers. This was women creating their own visual language, one fringe and leather cord at a time. The movement gained momentum through music festivals, college campuses, and urban neighborhoods where creativity mattered more than conformity. The boho look began with the silhouette of freedom itself. Gone were the tight-fitting dresses and structured blazers of previous decades. Instead, women embraced flowing maxi dresses that moved like poetry with every step. These weren't just long dresses. They were canvases of expression, often featuring paisley prints in deep burgundies, forest greens, and golden ochres that seemed to capture the very essence of autumn leaves. The fabrics told stories. Cotton gauze that breathed with the wearer, crushed velvet that caught light like scattered jewels, and hand-woven textiles that carried the mark of individual craftsmanship. Leather became the second skin of the boho woman. Soft, supple leather vests worn over peasant blouses created layers that spoke of adventure and authenticity. These weren't the harsh, structured leathers of motorcycle culture. This was leather that had been loved, worn, and weathered into something that felt organic and alive. Suede jackets in caramel and chocolate brown became essential pieces, often adorned with fringe that danced with movement. The leather accessories were equally important, wide belts with hammered metal buckles, crossbody bags with long straps that allowed for hands-free exploration, and boots that could handle both city streets and country paths. Fringe deserves special attention in the boho vocabulary. This wasn't mere decoration. Fringe was movement made visible. It appeared on everything from shawls to handbags, from the edges of vests to the hems of skirts. When a woman walked, her fringe created a gentle percussion that announced her presence without demanding attention. The fringe came in leather strips, suede tassels, and sometimes even macrame cord, each variation adding its own texture to the overall composition. The color palette of 70s boho style drew from the earth itself. Rich chocolate browns paired with cream and ivory created combinations that felt both grounded and ethereal. Burnt orange and rust red appeared in scarves and jewelry, while deep forest greens showed up in flowing capes and oversized sweaters. Gold wasn't just an accent color. It was woven into the very fabric of the look through metallic threads in textiles, hammered jewelry, and the warm undertones that unified the entire aesthetic. Accessories completed the bohemian woman's toolkit of self-expression. Layered necklaces combined turquoise stones, amber beads, and silver pendants in arrangements that felt collected rather than coordinated. Headbands weren't just practical. They were statements, often made from braided leather or featuring feathers and small charms. Scarves became multifunctional art pieces, worn as head wraps, belt alternatives, or simply draped across shoulders for an extra layer of texture and movement. The bohemian woman of the 70s understood that true style came from the inside out, and her carefully chosen pieces reflected a spirit that valued authenticity over approval, creating a foundation for expressing feminine beauty that would continue to evolve throughout the decade. The 70s bohemian woman moved through her world with a grace that seemed to flow from the very fabrics she chose to wear. Her mornings often began in spaces that reflected her aesthetic choices, apartments filled with hanging plants, Persian rugs, and furniture that mixed vintage finds with handcrafted pieces. She might layer a flowing kimono-style robe over a simple nightgown, both in fabrics that felt good against skin and moved beautifully in morning light. Getting dressed wasn't just about covering the body. It was about creating a daily work of art that would carry her through whatever adventures awaited. The workplace of the 70s was changing, and the boho woman adapted her style accordingly. In creative fields, advertising agencies, design studios, publishing houses, she might wear a peasant blouse in natural cotton, with wide sleeves that moved gracefully as she gestured during meetings. Over this, a suede vest provided structure without stiffness, while wide leg pants in earthy corduroy or wool allowed for comfortable movement throughout long workdays. Her briefcase was likely a soft leather satchel with long straps, functional but far from corporate in its aesthetic. Evening brought new opportunities for bohemian expression. The 70s woman understood the art of layering for both warmth and visual interest. A maxi dress in printed cotton might serve as the foundation, but the magic happened in the additions. A crocheted vest that caught candlelight, a flowing scarf that could be repositioned throughout the evening, and boots that were both practical for walking city streets and beautiful enough for dinner conversations. Her jewelry told stories: a silver cuff bracelet picked up at a craft fair, turquoise earrings that caught the light just so, rings on multiple fingers that created subtle music when she gestured. Shopping for bohemian pieces was itself a cultural experience. The 70s saw the rise of boutiques that specialized in imported goods and handcrafted items. Women would spend Saturday afternoons browsing through shops that smelled of patchouli and sandalwood, running their fingers over embroidered fabrics from India and Mexico. Flea markets and vintage shops became treasure hunting grounds, where a perfectly worn leather jacket or an unusual piece of estate jewelry could complete an outfit or inspire entirely new combinations. The social rituals of the era supported this aesthetic philosophy. House parties where guests sat on floor cushions and passed around acoustic guitars called for clothing that looked beautiful while allowing for comfortable cross-legged sitting. Outdoor concerts and festivals required pieces that could transition from afternoon sun to evening chill. Hence the popularity of layering pieces like shawls, capes, and light sweaters that could be added or removed as needed. Travel was central to the bohemian lifestyle, and the clothes reflected this priority. Wrinkle-resistant fabrics that could be rolled into small spaces, versatile pieces that worked for multiple occasions, and comfortable shoes that could handle both sightseeing and social gatherings were essential. The bohemian travel wardrobe might include a single maxi dress that could be dressed up with jewelry and scarves or dressed down with a denim jacket and sandals. Even mundane activities like grocery shopping or running errands became opportunities for artistic expression. A simple trip might call for bell-bottom jeans paired with a flowing tunic, accessorized with a macrame belt and carrying a woven basket instead of a plastic bag. The bohemian woman understood that every public appearance was a chance to share her aesthetic vision with the world. Not through ostentation, but through authentic choices that reflected her values and personality. The decade's emphasis on natural materials and handcrafted items meant that many bohemian women became skilled in various crafts themselves. Learning to macrame meant creating custom belts and plant hangers, Understanding basic sewing opened up possibilities for customizing vintage finds or creating entirely new pieces. This hands-on relationship with clothing and accessories added another layer of meaning to every outfit. Not just what it looked like, but the story of how it came to be. Setting the stage for understanding how this deeply personal approach to feminine beauty would influence fashion culture far beyond the 70s themselves. The bohemian aesthetic of the 70s created ripples that extended far beyond individual wardrobes and into the broader landscape of feminine expression. Women who embraced this free-flowing style became walking advertisements for a new way of thinking about beauty and self-presentation. When they entered department stores, boutique owners took notice of their confident layering techniques and earth-toned color combinations. Fashion buyers began seeking out suppliers who could provide the flowing fabrics, natural materials, and handcrafted details that these customers demanded. By 1974, major retailers like Bloomingdale's and Lord Taylor had dedicated sections for bohemian-inspired pieces, bringing fringe vests and peasant blouses to women who might never have discovered them otherwise. The influence spread through media in subtle but powerful ways. Women's magazines began featuring photo shoots in natural outdoor settings rather than sterile studio environments. Models wore minimal makeup that emphasized natural skin and tousled hair that looked touchable rather than shellacked into place. Television shows started incorporating characters whose wardrobes reflected this new aesthetic. Women who looked approachable and authentic rather than artificially perfect. Shopping behaviors shifted as women learned to see fashion as a form of personal archaeology. Instead of buying complete outfits from single designers, the bohemian approach encouraged mixing vintage finds with contemporary pieces, creating looks that couldn't be replicated by simply following a magazine layout. This democratized fashion in unprecedented ways. A woman with limited resources could create stunning outfits by combining a few key vintage pieces with carefully chosen new accessories. The workplace began adapting to accommodate this new feminine aesthetic. Law firms and corporate offices that had previously insisted on rigid dress codes found themselves loosening restrictions to attract and retain talented women who refused to abandon their authentic style completely. The compromise often involved maintaining professional silhouettes while allowing for natural fabrics, earth-tone colors, and subtle bohemian touches like interesting jewelry or flowing scarves. International influence flowed both ways. American women wearing Indian cotton prints and Mexican embroidered blouses created demand that supported artisan communities around the world. Simultaneously, the confident way American women mixed cultural elements created new hybrid styles that influenced fashion in other countries. European designers began incorporating fringe details and natural materials into their collections, while maintaining their own aesthetic signatures. The economic impact was substantial but distributed across many small businesses, rather than concentrated in major fashion houses. Local craft fairs flourished as women sought unique pieces that couldn't be found in department stores. Small import businesses specializing in textiles and jewelry from developing countries found eager American customers. Vintage clothing stores evolved from niche curiosities into thriving businesses that catered to women seeking authentic pieces from earlier eras. First among the three feminine signatures of 70s bohemian style was the art of meaningful layering. This wasn't random accumulation of clothing, but rather thoughtful composition where each piece enhanced the others. A simple cotton dress became sophisticated through the addition of a perfectly worn leather vest and a collection of silver bangles that created gentle music with movement. Second was the mastery of natural elegance through earth-connected colors and textures. The bohemian woman understood that beauty came from harmony with rather than domination over natural elements. Her palette of forest greens, autumn golds, and rich browns created an aesthetic that felt both timeless and deeply contemporary. Third was the confidence of authentic self-expression that refused to conform to external expectations. This wasn't rebellion for its own sake, but rather the quiet strength of women who knew their own minds and dressed accordingly. Their clothing choices communicated creativity, independence, and a deep appreciation for craftsmanship and natural beauty. The enduring appeal of 70s bohemian style lies in its fundamental respect for the individual woman's right to define her own version of beauty. In a world that often tries to impose narrow standards, the bohemian approach offers a different path. One where feminine beauty is expressed through personal choices, rather than prescribed formulas. Today's women who layer vintage scarves with contemporary pieces or choose handcrafted jewelry over mass-produced accessories are continuing this tradition of authentic self-expression. The fringes may have evolved and the leather may be styled differently, but the core principle remains unchanged. True feminine beauty emerges when women feel free to express their authentic selves through thoughtful, creative choices that honor both their individual spirit and their connection to the larger world around them.